Spooky Tuesday.
I want you to help us kill him. You want me to help you and the host of a morning show commit murder. Correct.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sidney Thompson.
I'm Monica Haidt.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
And this week we are bringing it back to our spooky roots.
Back to the beginning. I don't know if that's a song, but I like it.
It is now. Monica coming in for Best Singer of the Pod.
I just did Spooky Roots. No credit.
Sorry, I sang it louder, so I won.
You just sang it second. Whatever.
But we're bringing it back to the beginning, which is important to do, to just do a little review.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of reviewing the movies, review ourselves. But no, we're still reviewing a movie.
And that movie is Scream, not the original, not the 1996.
Yeah,
Six?
six. Yep.
Yep.
We're doing the 2022 one, which is
That
technically
just dropped.
Scream 5. Sorry, it's
Scream 5.
It's Scream
But
5.
as we all know, there's discourse about that title, directly referenced by the movie itself, actually. So fun.
And can I just say that I have not been so excited for a movie maybe in my life. In my life, that might be dramatic. I would say this is the fourth most excited I've ever been for a movie. And that's saying something. I was so freaking hyped for this. I risked my life going to the movie theater in Los Angeles during the Omicron surge. So did Chelsea. So did Sydney. And we do it for Sidney Prescott, and that's what we do it for.
I will risk my life for all Scream movies.
It's
I
worth
will
it.
lay my life on the line for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
As of
That
now, I
sounds
didn't
like-
die from it, so things are going pretty well. Worth
Yeah,
it.
I mean, fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Okay.
Um,
But so heads up, this
Uh-huh.
is hella spoilery. We are gonna just be talking about this movie. So if you haven't decided you were wanting to risk your life, which good for you, honestly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Fair.
very fair.
A very honestly smart choice that we did not make.
Yes, yes.
But Scream. I like to say this one with an exclamation point in my head. So it's like
Uh-huh.
Scream. So it's a little bit different.
Okay.
25 years after the original series of murders in Woodsboro, a new ghost face emerges, and Sidney Prescott must return to uncover the truth.
Wow. I mean, it makes sense that they say her name in the bio line, but that's not the amount of screen time that she has.
Yeah, a little
For
misleading.
sure. A little misleading. But that's how they draw you in. But yeah, I mean, just to echo what Sydney was just saying, if you have not watched it, please turn this off, because I would hate to spoil the twists and turns of this movie for you. It should be left pristine. So just wait a week or something. I think we gave the people enough time, though. It's gonna be
We gave
weeks
enough
since
time.
it came out.
And honestly, frankly, I saw it the Friday that it came out at 3 p.m. in a very empty theater for the most part. And Sydney messaged me that weekend because she wasn't going to go until the second weekend. And she's like, is it as good as people are saying? People were raving about it off the bat. And even then I was like, I don't even know how to respond to Sydney's question, because I think there were things that I really wanted to preserve as an authentic first experience for you. You can only see a movie for the first time once, you know what I mean? And some things I really wanted you to discover on your own. And I was so scared for a week that you were going to get spoiled online. Did you see any spoilers online?
No, I on Twitter, I blocked most of the stuff. After I was like, okay, it's getting
thank God.
I was like, a lot of people are saying it's so good. And then I was like, okay, I've got to block things. But also, so I have movie anxiety, which I think is really funny. So I normally like to read like the plot description of any movie before I see said movie, and I didn't with this one.
Brave.
I'm so proud of you.
I know, super brave, super. And also, I would like to rebuke your earlier statement of you only see a movie like for the first time once, because
Unless
Monica,
yeah,
unless you're Monica, unless you're Monica.
Monica gets to see the movie for the first time a million times, and honestly, jealous.
Beautiful, a beautiful mind right here. That movie was written about me, and just forgetting. I don't know what that movie's about. I'm so sorry.
No, but honestly, Monica saw it opening weekend too, and then was like, okay, I have to go back because I'm gonna forget everything if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, we watched it. We were originally going to record 2 days ago, so Chelsea and I went again the night before. Yeah, I've forgotten most of it in the last 3 days.
It'll come to you, I think. It'll come back.
It'll come back. It'll be fine. But like,
yeah, I saw it for the first time when y'all were seeing it for the second time.
Did you get like? I want to hear initial impressions, because I feel like I had a very defined experience the first time I watched it. I went by myself, but one of our other spooky friends had seen it Thursday night. She went to a Thursday night screening. And so I called her in the car when I was like on my drive home, and we chatted. And then I had like 14 other conversations with people about Scream. I talked to like our spooky friend, Danny. I talked to his sister. I talked to some of our followers on Instagram. And I just like had a lot of conversations. Yeah. I talked to Monica right after she saw it. And then we went and saw it again, and I had like a slightly different experience. So I want to hear initial thoughts. What were your initial thoughts?
I have some thoughts. My first thought when I was watching this was that opening scene. I don't like the opening scene of Scream 4, where they try to like do like the movie within a movie within the movie. And so I'm really glad that in the opening scene, they kind of bring it back almost very parallel to the original one.
Yeah, back to basics.
Back to basics. But I love that the people in the opening scene are normally just kind of like overthought,
yeah, they're dead.
They're dead. You don't really like get to know them a little bit more. But
Scream 3 was a little different. Scream 3 was different because it was Cotton Weary from previous Scream. Like, you already had attachment to the character, which I thought was actually a really interesting choice.
That I
forgot that about Scream 3.
How could you forget anything about Scream 3? It's the best.
I've forgotten all of Scream 3. Continue. I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Heartbreaking.
It's the Scream 5 podcast.
This could be a Scream 3 podcast if we wanted it to be.
It could. I love that she survives and is like a part of the actual story. Like, I thought that was such like an original, like creative twist on something that, like, you know, when you walk in there, you're like, okay, this girl's dead. Who is she? But
it's Jenna Ortega.
Yeah. And I was so sad that I thought Jenna Ortega was the opening girl and she was going to go, because I mean, You is a great show, but I watched her back when she was tiny baby on Jane the Virgin. And then I was working in like teen entertainment when she landed her Disney Channel show, and like had just gotten it. And I did like an email interview with her. And so I like have been kind of vaguely following her for a long time. And I thought she was only going to be in the movie for 5 minutes. And I was so sad. And then we got to have so much more of her. And I was like, this is okay. I thought it was great for a lot of reasons, but I thought it was really great for one, because so much of this movie is the new crew and not the old crew. And to give us an entry point of a character to root for and care for, and then let that lead into the rest of the characters instead of having to bring Sidney back so early on. I thought that was an easy, quick way to make you like develop some interest in them at least, and put you on your toes to be like, this is different. This is a different movie. They're playing by slightly different rules now. And so you don't necessarily know what you can count on based on the old rules and what you can't.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's such a good point, because yeah, it's hard. I mean, same thing with, Scream 4, we had Sidney the entire fucking time, and we had Dewey right away and everything like that. But like, you need to care about these people, especially in a legacy movie like this. And so you're right, that did work. I immediately cared so fucking much because I immediately fell in love with Jenna Ortega, and
she's so cute.
She's so cute, and I loved You so much. But like, She, in my opinion, there's a lot of amazing characters that they introduced in this, but she's my favorite by far. Like, I feel like she stole the show. Like, that performance at the beginning was just so incredible. Like, we said this about Samara Weaving for Ready or Not, which, ha ha ha, what a through line. But like a new Scream queen fucking rises. Like, Jenna Ortega is in like 3 horror movies this year, at least, maybe 4.
She, I think, her acting was just like heads above the rest compared to all the other like new cast members, except
Agreed.
Mindy. I love Mindy.
Yellow Jacket star. And just gonna take this as a quick moment to say I did apparently say Sistine Stallone was in Yellow Jackets from 47 Meters Down Uncaged. That is not true, but I really expected Monica to be talking about Sophie Nélisse, and I just said the same name that she said, but I had a different name in my head entirely. But Sophie Nélisse is in Yellow Jackets.
For this?
No, it was my brain because I was not listening to you because I was already anticipating what I was.
So that is your fault.
It is my fault, and it was rude, frankly. But it also happened with this movie because you said to me, actually, this one might be your fault unless it was my brain again. You'll have to clarify. But I think when we talked after you saw the movie for the first time, you said that in the movie they said the Ready or Not guys did stab 8.
Yeah,
but they say it's the Knives Out guy, they say.
Oh,
and then we were in the theater together and they said something about the Knives Out guy doing stab 8, and you and I like bumped arms because in my head they still had said Ready or Not.
Yeah.
And then it was only hours later I was like, that's not what they said. They said Knives Out, which is
well, you're getting mad at me for something that I haven't even said on the record on the pod yet. So
okay, well, I put it on the record now. But it happened to me again because I was so expecting one thing that it didn't even as I was hearing it, it didn't register.
Yeah. Well,
but
I'm just glad that I can
actually.
I'm glad I can still keep shit talking Sistine Stallone without any remorse. So,
yeah, but you have to.
I
say
hope
nice
you're not listening.
Well, I thought Sistine did great. Regardless, the Ryan Johnson did Knives Out. But it's really an interesting reference. Sorry, I'm going into this moment really deep right now, but they say the Knives Out guy did stab 8, and Ryan Johnson also did Star Wars, the 8th Star Wars, which was like such a controversial sequel, which is the joke. And part of it also that Knives Out was like sort of social commentary, etc.
I did not, as somebody who is saving Star Wars for marriage, I have not seen any of the Star Wars movies, so I did not get that. And it was like such kind of like a big-ish like plot point in it. And I was just like, this goes completely over my head. And I hate that. I was like,
There was a billion Easter eggs in this movie. There was like a billion direct Scream references. And then there were a lot of really tiny little ones too. And I didn't notice basically any of them the first time around. And then the second time I noticed some of them and I thought I was the smartest girl in the world until I was reading IMDb trivia for this movie, and it turns out other people noticed too. But can I just
They put that in there for people to notice, Chelsea.
They put that in there for me exclusively. But in that same scene, I think where they were talking about Ryan Johnson, the Knives Out director, doing a stab 8, they have like a YouTube scene of two real podcaster people talking about movies. Those are real people. That's not like they probably filmed that for this movie, but anyway.
Of course they filmed it for the movie. Stab 8 doesn't exist in real life.
No, I understand. But they weren't like actors playing a role. Those are like just people doing a bit. Okay. But this side of the YouTube screen, you know how when you go on YouTube and you're watching something, it gives you recommended
related videos. Yeah.
One of the related videos said that Kirby from Scream 4, Hayden Panettiere, lives. It's like
interview with Survivor.
Yeah. And then there's another one underneath that's like some speculative conspiracy theory type video that's like, did the real Stu Macher survive? Which actually I would need to now talk about immediately now that I've talked about this.
So many thoughts.
Can we do the stew of it all for a sec?
I called Chelsea after this, and my first experience with this movie is I fucking loved it. I was laughing my ass off. I saw it at Alamo Draft House in downtown LA, which was like the perfect place to see it because they served alcohol. And so I was stressed drinking a Paloma or something, and it really helped. Because this shit was gruesome. Oh my god. But we'll get to that. But I was so convinced, and this was so dumb, but I was so convinced because they kept making references to Stu in a disrespectful way, in my opinion. Whereas, like, they'd be like, Skeet, not Skeet, Monica, his name is not Skeet in the movie, Billy Loomis and his friend killed a bunch of people. Like, they just, like, washed over Stu
Wrote him
so
out of
many
the
times.
story.
Yeah, like,
Disrespectful.
ignored him. Yeah, like, erased him from the narrative. And I was like, they're doing this intentionally. And I'm just like Chelsea, I'm the smartest bitch in the world, and I've figured it out. And it's going to be Stu, and he's going to be the killer. And it's just like, I was so convinced that when it wasn't that, I was devastated. So it absolutely ruined the last bit for me because I was so sure I was right. And I was so very surely 100,000% wrong, like very far off. But I like to live in a fantasy world. But when will Scream 6 have that be the thing? Yes,
Okay.
hopefully.
Wait,
So-
we need to discuss that. Sorry, I interrupted you, so I was going to let you go. But then it really
me.
seemed like I was charging into something. Please,
Well,
feel free.
So I was gonna say we do get like a mini like Stu nod when we get the character Vince,
Mhm.
who
Yes.
I'm still not fully unsure who Vince is, other than Stu's nephew,
Mhm.
who
Yeah.
like worked or was like creeping on
He went to camp or something, or worked at the camp that her real name's
Amber
Sonia.
and
Amber went to and they had hooked up at the camp the summer before.
Liv.
Oh, I
Was
don't
it
know.
Liv,
I don't
not
know any-
Amber.
okay, I get them confused.
Chad's girlfriend, Liv. With
Yes,
the pink
okay.
hair.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yeah,
let me look at the
Liv
names.
and Jenna Ortega, who has a name, and
Tara? It's
Tara.
Tara,
right?
yeah. Liv and Tara had worked somewhere. I don't know how you know it was at camp. Maybe you paid
It
more
was at
attention than
camp.
me. But they had worked with Vince, and he had been creepy to Liv recently. And yeah, I'm not sure. Like, obviously,
They had
he was
hooked up
there.
once before.
Yeah, he was there to be a connection to the original killings, kind of the same way that in Scream 2 they had people with a connection to the original killings by doing like Maureen Evans and like blah 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 Stevens, and like CC Cooper was like Casey Becker.
Yeah.
And so he, as Stu's nephew, was the connection, but I thought it was not necessarily used to its full potential, because the way he
that was
being creepy at
stupid.
first, yeah, it seemed like they were going to cast suspicion on him a little bit, and then he dies 5 seconds later,
Yeah.
and then it
was
seemed
just
like they
so-
were
it
going
was
to
a waste.
use the fact that he was creepy to cast suspicion on Liv or on Tara, and then they kind of just didn't mention him again.
No, it was so dumb. I thought like I loved this movie and I thought it was really well done, but I felt like that was just like a weird, like unfinished thought that they just like put it in there, like, oh, we gotta make a reference to Stu.
Okay,
Right,
but
done. Like, okay, fuck you.
but
Guess
going
so
back
mad there's no Matthew
to-
Lillard.
I'm so mad. Continue, Sydney. I'm sorry.
so maybe going forward into Scream 6, that's maybe how we can get Stu back if he did survive, which I
Wait.
believe he did.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm starting to see it as set up for Scream 6. It's all set up for Scream 6 about Stu. All about
Here's
Stu.
the thing. I have a lot of different and varying feelings on that, because I kind of felt like there wasn't enough setup for that. And I kind of feel like, and again, we've already done our spoiler warning, so I'm going to go ahead and say they bring Billy back, essentially, like not back to life, obviously, but they have the
That'd be jumping the shark. My God.
Yeah, they've got the visions of Billy that Sam has, which I talked about with one of my friends, and we kind of agreed, like, it's not totally dissimilar to what they did with Sydney seeing her mom in Scream 3. So there is like precedent
Yeah, that's
connection.
true.
franchise.
That's true.
But so they bring Billy back in that way, and it felt kind of to me like you can't bring both back. You know what I mean?
No.
Like it's one or the other, and they made a really strong choice by going with Billy. And when I say strong choice, I don't necessarily mean that it's the choice that I would have made or the choice that I think is best. I just think they really committed to it.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that more later because I have further thoughts about that. But it felt like kind of a one or the other deal. And they went this way. And then with the very few mentions of Stu, it felt like there's not enough setup to bring him back later. Cause like there is explicitly room within the franchise for that as a concept. Like that was going to be the original plot of Scream 3. We've talked about it on our Scream 3 episode. He was going to be alive in jail, and he was going to have like a cult of teenagers listening to him doing more murders. And then they scrapped that idea because of Columbine. And this was like verified as true, by the way, because Matthew Lillard did a Q&A in his Discord thing or whatever, and we all listened
Midnight
to
Movie
it, and
Club.
he talked about it. So that came from him as well.
From the horse's mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So if anyone is the source on that, it's him. And so explicitly they left room for that in the franchise, but now it's been so many movies later. You know what I mean? Like there's no mention of him in the Scream 3 that we got. There's no mention of him in Scream 4, and there's no mention of him surviving in Scream 5. And it feels like at this point, it would have been so easy to drop a line in, really like one line, nothing big, talking about Vince being like, oh, he's like on the pathway to prison just like his uncle, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? They could have thrown something in there being like, he's such a creep just like his uncle, blah blah blah, whatever.
Because I think that might have made it too obvious that they were going to do that in the future. I don't know.
Yes, and I hear you, but the thing is that we're already not getting very much Nev Campbell, and we're already not getting very much Courtney Cox. And I don't know that I necessarily see them returning for a larger role in future Screams unless Patrick Dempsey signed on, and then who knows. And I want to talk about that more later as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't necessarily, they scaled back their participation already, and I don't necessarily see that changing in a future Scream. And so if I'm getting less Sidney, I am getting less interested. But if they gave me Stu, I would be unbelievably interested, obviously. But also now there's been no mentions of him, and then to have a little video that's like a conspiracy, like did he really survive? If he did, people would know. And if he did and people didn't know, then like
the witness protection.
Right.
Shut up.
And no, I've thought about this already. And it's that again is like, that doesn't make sense, because the only reason that they would do that and that they would offer him protection is if he was like testifying against Billy or something like that, and they needed to protect him from that. And Billy is dead, confirmed dead, shot in the head, dead. And so there's like obviously so much space for Matthew Lillard to have survived, not just because there were plans for that to be the case for Scream 3, but also because, and they've said this a million times now, the killer's not dead until you shoot them in the head. And he's the only killer in any of the Scream movies to not get shot in the head, other than maybe Charlie. I don't really remember how Charlie goes exactly in Scream 4. But other than that, he's the only one. And so explicitly within the rules of Scream, he would be like allowed to survive. But I just don't buy that he would have survived and it would be a secret. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's your opinion.
You said, you know what? That's your problem. Okay, fair.
I live in my own little world that has no rules, and so I'm gonna hold out hope.
I'm not saying that they won't do it. I'm just saying that
it might be bad.
It's going to be hard to make it make sense, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would never have thought in a million years that they would bring Billy Loomis back in the way they did. And I didn't like it, but it wasn't terrible. Like I was like, ugh. But I do love to gaze upon Skeet Ulrich's face,
Why'd they
his
de-age
dreamy
him, though?
visage. Huh?
Because he couldn't be old. He had to
He
be.
can't be
Why
old.
not? He's
teenager.
not real.
But she wouldn't have
Yeah, but
known
she
what her
wouldn't
dad.
know
Know what
what
I
he
mean?
looks
Like,
He was maybe
old.
not even born when he looked like that in the final moments of Scream.
Yeah,
She
but she
doesn't
can
know what
look
he
up
looked like then.
knows-
And here's the
Chelsea,
thing.
that would
He
have
should
been
have been
so
old.
weird.
No.
No, I disagree.
No,
Absolutely not.
no.
I have a
No.
practical.
No.
If he had been old like a paternal figure to her because he's her
No.
dad, why would she
But
not
he's
imagine him
not-
dad age?
Because he's not a
he's never
paternal
lived-
figure to her.
No,
That's
she
his
hates
whole thing
him.
in this movie is that at
She-
the end she's like, I'm
Yeah,
just
but
like my
she's
dad.
fighting it the entire
Yeah.
time. Like she hates him.
Just because he's
of
her
what
dad doesn't mean he's a paternal figure too.
Yeah,
Like, two big different
totally.
things.
Also, like, no, it looked kind of weird. Totally, I agree. But like, he's aged very well, so it was fine. It was mostly weird for me to see him without the beard as an older person because I watched Riverdale, or I did for a long time.
He
great with a
looks
beard.
so good in Riverdale.
He looks so good in Riverdale. I follow him on
So good
Instagram.
in
He looks good all the time. Good job, Skeet. Great job aging. But yeah, I mean,
I think he should have
The-
been old or he should have had the bullet in his head. One or the other.
that would have been cool and
Okay,
fucked up.
I could have.
It'd have been more like a ghost instead of like a whatever vision thing that it was. What do we call? What do we want to say?
Hallucinations.
Hallucination is the
hallucination.
word. Hallucination is the word. Yes. I get
What
why
did we
they
think
did
of
it.
that choice?
I didn't like that part. We could have lost it for me, but I mean, I guess maybe we couldn't. I don't know. It's hard for me
Okay,
to
let's
rewrite it.
let's talk about Sam for a minute though, because
Okay.
like I don't know how sold I like. They're clearly setting Sam up to be like the next main girl, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want it to be Tara. Like,
Yeah,
I
same.
don't have the emotional connection to Sam that I do to Tara, even though Sam was like the main focus point of it. But
Mhm,
also,
mhm.
I do love that her name is Sam Carpenter
Yeah.
because
Yes.
it's an incredible Psycho reference. But also, if like in like an alternate reality, she would have been Sam Loomis, which is the name of the like doctor in the movie in Halloween who's like in charge of Michael Myers. So it's just like
Oh,
a very
shit.
fun little like
Oh,
Which is like who Billy
cool.
Loomis is named for. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
I love
thought
that.
that was like a really fun like nod to
Yeah.
Also
that
John
horror
Carpenter,
movie.
etc.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also, I do love that we see like an Elm Street reference.
Mhm. They finally
in
show us
this
that.
movie too.
Yeah.
But like
Tara's like, her name is Sidney Prescott and she lived on Elm Street.
incredible. But like
Incredible.
I'm just not sold on Sam. Like if she's gonna be the main girl moving forward in this franchise, like I don't know how invested I'm gonna be, quite frankly. Like if they focus more on like the other supporting characters, I'm in.
Yeah.
But like if it's just her, I'm still gonna watch them all, but like I don't know, like I just don't have a. And also just like
Yeah.
the whole like I ran away to protect you from myself. I'm like, bitch, you don't know who
It
you
was
are.
very
Like, you're
melodramatic.
18.
They also never talked about her struggles with her mental health at all as part of that, which felt very weird to also make the choice to have her taking antipsychotics and having hallucinations of her dead serial killer biological father. And not
like-
and to have that be like such a part of the plot but never discussed was a choice
Her
to me.
Trauma was
Um,
totally ham-fisted. Like it was just like she's got hallucinations and it's spooky and that's it. Like with that energy, like
Yeah.
it wasn't fleshed out. Like you don't really ever get to know Sam like as a person, like in a fun way. for
That's
me,
true,
at least.
actually. I don't
Like,
really
with-
have much of an idea about her
No, I have
personality.
no idea about what her deal is at all, except she likes tall, lanky men like I do, and so I
Same.
get that.
Love a
And
good, tall, lanky man.
Yeah, we love Jack Quaid. He's a cutie. But what was I gonna say? Oh, but Tara, like that opening scene does such a great job, like you were saying, Chelsea, of making you freaking fall in love with her immediately. Like I was watching this movie and for the first time, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, she does that whole great speech about elevated horror and talking about the Babadook and the witch and all these movies. And I was like, I am Tara. And in this moment, Ghostface is Sidney. And this Sidney Chase Thompson right here. And she's going to stab me to death because I won't shut the fuck up about elevated horror. That's
but literally, the first note in my notes, the first thing that I wrote down is, it follows Hereditary, The Witch, all big Monica vibes. My favorite movie is The Babadook. It's elevated horror. What kind of bullshit is this?
Okay, but also
it's a beautiful rumination on grief and motherhood.
Gorgeous. That she mentions the Babadook first. Gay. That's a gay movie. That's a gay girl. And apparently there were maybe actually supposed to be gay vibes within the script. Like I did not go down this rabbit hole. I just saw other people talking about it. So this could be fake news, but I'm going to say it anyway. Mikey Madison's character, she's Amber.
Who's gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah, she originally was maybe going to be a lesbian, like in the script.
Get those vibes.
Her and Tara 100% gay. There was something there. You can't convince me. And then at the end, for them to be like, no, she's calling Jack Quaid babe. No, she's not. Shut up.
No,
she's not. They can be partners without being in love or making out or calling each other babe or whatever. They can be
platonic life partners, okay?
Yeah,
they can be platonic killing partners, okay? Exactly. Like, that's fine.
They're platonic cycles. They share a passion. They decided to start a project together. They wrote their own little fan fiction, and good for them, frankly. We're three friends who started a podcast together. We have a passion project. That doesn't mean we all need to be dating. I just think that
we don't need to be.
We don't need to be. The writers haven't made that choice for us yet at this time.
Yes.
Who knows what the future holds? But I'm just saying, you don't need that to be there. And I don't think it added anything at the end, unless I guess maybe for some people
it added disappointment to my life.
Yeah, maybe for some people it was like a twist the knife on the betrayal of Sam. Like he doesn't even really like her in any capacity because he's been with this other girl the whole time. But I really think the trying to kill her and frame her for murder thing covered that. You know what I mean? Like I agree. It was already enough of a betrayal. He doesn't need to have been courting somebody else.
Also, I mean, they just lay the groundwork so thickly for Amber to be gay. Like, she is like super obsessed with Tara the entire time and protecting her and keeping people away from her and keeping Wes away from her and all this stuff and making fun of Wes for liking her and all this stuff. And it just seems very pointed. And then there's also that scene with Amber and my babe Mindy, where they go down into the basement and Mindy comes down there and is like, you're a fucking idiot. You should never have gone into the basement by yourself. There's a psycho killer on the loose, which is like one of the best scenes. And the sexual tension could be cut with a knife. The vibes are all there. And then they take it away from us and give us something with Jack Quaid. Like, love Jack Quaid, but like, no, we don't need it. We don't need it to happen.
I guess Amber could be bisexual and all of these vibes could exist and she could be dating him, but like, I just don't need the dating him part. It didn't add anything to the movie for me. And also, like, I've watched Killing Eve, and I know that stabbing the woman that you are psychosexually obsessed with is like the gayest thing that you can do. And so Amber attacking Tara in the beginning is just extremely gay vibes to me. Frankly,
it's very gay. I mean, this is one of the gayest Scream movies we've had yet.
It's for sure the gayest
with the vibes, but then actually, like, we get our very first canonically gay character. She's even wearing a goddamn gay flag heart pin. And that's Mindy Meeks Barton, aka Jasmine Savoy, and she is amazing. I am now obsessed with her.
AKA Randy's niece.
Randy's
Yes.
niece.
I love that it's Randy's niece. Mindy and Chad are twins in there.
Let's be
Randy's
realistic for a
niece and
second.
nephew.
Heather
What?
Matarazzo is only like 12 years older than them. She was still like a baby teen in Scream 3. There's no way she's old enough to have 18-year-old twins, but
You know, she
I'm
already
gonna let it
had
slide.
kids
It's
at
fine.
that time. There was
Horrifying.
something
She was
else
tiny
with
baby
that.
in Scream 3.
Well,
For her
here's
to
the
have
thing.
twins, or oh my god, I'm not
She
going
could
down that
have.
path.
She could have had.
There's
people
been
have many children in
a
high
wrinkle
school
in
that happens all
time,
the time.
etc. Well, yeah, Sam's mom, but
Exactly. And also the other thing that I was thinking about is with Judy Hicks, Sheriff Judy. She
they retcon
like,
in a child for her as well.
Yeah, they put a child in there too, and she did not seem like she had a child in Scream 4, which was 10 years ago.
She really did it, and it would have added something to Scream 4 because I felt like in Scream 4 they didn't really like say it explicitly. I don't think, unless you guys have watched. I didn't rewatch it before I saw the new one.
I rewatched it right before. I watched it on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Judy is sort of positioned in Scream 4 as a romantic rival for Gail, and she's being like making lemon bars for Dewey or whatever. But part of the Gail Dewey drama in Scream 4 is that Dewey like wants to stay in Woodsboro and have his life in Woodsboro, and Gail is like itchy to get out and go to somewhere else. And I kind of feel like there was an implied Dewey wants a family maybe, and Gail wants fame, and like her career is her baby. And
Fair.
so Judy having a child would have added like a very interesting element to that of like, come slot into my pre-made family for you, you know what I mean? And him choosing Gail over that would have been an interesting choice as well, especially in light of this movie and what it does and doesn't do for Dewey and Gail. But also like whatever, it's fine, who cares? We didn't really see Judy as like a whole real person, so it's fine.
I agree, but I do like Wes's character because I think Dylan Minette. I like him. He's a cutie pie. His character...
I love the throwback of like the icy hair tips that he has.
Yes. Okay, well, that was a thing like 2 years ago. Also, every person that I knew, every boy that I knew did that blonde hair thing with the dark roots, and only some of them pulled it off. But he looked pretty good with it. But I love that his name was Wes because that was a little nod to Wes Craven because this is the first Scream movie without him at the helm. And yeah, I was reading this really sweet article from the Hollywood Reporter, which I thought sucked, but they did an article with Neve Campbell, like an interview. And she said that like they did all these nice things to commemorate him. And like when you walked into Stu's house at the end, like they had a big sign that said like for Wes, and Neve Campbell like burst into tears when she saw it. Fuck you. Neve Campbell, also known by her stage name Neve Campbell.
Yeah, famous. She's the light of my life.
Candle. Okay, thank you.
Neve Candle, actually. Neve burst into tears. So did Courtney Cox. So did our boy. What's his name? Oh my God, Dewey.
David Arquette.
David Arquette. Okay.
Also in that scene, they had a bunch of people make like voice cameos. Like Matthew Lillard made a voice cameo at that part, at the party, and so did Drew Barrymore, and I think they said so did Adam Brody as well. Like at the party when they did the cheers for Wes, they toasted to Wes. A bunch of people like joined in at that part and did a voice cameo. And Matthew Lillard did a voice cameo when they walked in, being like, "This shit is lit." Oh, he says apparently Matthew Lillard does the voice of flamethrower Ghostface from a Stab 8 clip where he says this shit is lit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
and then
the Ghostface in Stab 8 is Matthew Lillard, which I love.
Yeah. And then when Amber's walking through the party, I'm reading from IMDb trivia. When Amber's walking through the party, there's a couple right before she turns into the kitchen, and Matthew Lillard's voice says "Cool House, Freeman." Which is funny because it is his house. And so there were a lot of
Easter
really
eggs.
cute little things like that. But yeah, they had gosh, what's his name? The Fawn's Principal Himbry.
Henry
he did
Winkler.
one as well. Yes, exactly. So it was really sweet that they really tried to do a lot of references. Okay, actually now, sorry, I don't remember what point we were on before, but I've changed
No,
points
we can
now.
talk about references now.
Yeah,
I've got so
the
many
first
references.
time that I watched this movie, I really wanted it to be the last one. And my feelings about that, I'm much more open to Scream 6 and future Screams after a second viewing when I think the pressure was off. And I was like, well, it was still really fun a second time. And so I could see them doing more and I could see them still being very fun, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the way that I felt, I really wanted this to be the last one initially because the way that Scream is like a love letter to the genre, I felt that this movie was such a love letter to the Scream franchise.
Totally.
I can see that.
It really was. I mean, I feel like they gave more like love to past characters, except for Stu in this one, than any other movie. I mean, I mostly only say that though because we got like a little bit of sentimentality about Tatum for the very first time from Dewey's character. Very first time ever. And it's a blink if you miss it. Like I don't think Chelsea saw it the first time. Yeah, in the scene where we first get to see Dewey, which is just a beautifully crafted experience.
No, sad, heartbreaking.
Very sad, but very well done. You see like he keeps glancing at this photo of him and Gail, and Gail's like kissing him on the cheek, but right next to that is a little box and it says Tatum on it, which I would assume is filled with her ashes. Dark, but true. Yeah, and I was like, fucking finally, like some sentimentality instead of like Scream 4 where it's like her fake dead body sitting like falling out a window or whatever. And like I don't remember.
Door. Yeah, at the Sabathon.
The doggy door. Yeah, at Sabathon, which is like not
nice. It's not nice.
Thing. No, it's not nice. And so like I thought that was very sweet little thing, and I also just loved Dewey in this movie. It was absolutely fucking tragic every single instance of it. The fact that like he now like I just rewatched Scream 4. They had this big huge house that they lived in and like it was very fancy or whatever in Scream 4, and now he's living in a trailer park, and he like is getting ready in the morning. You see all this alcohol that he has, like, and at first I was like, oh, he's got a great bar set up, but then we find out that maybe he is an alcoholic now, which is very sad. And then
he also had a picture of like 6 different dogs on his fridge. What was that about?
So many dogs.
I have to assume
fostering.
Right, but it's been like 10 years since Scream 4. That's a lot of dogs in the meantime. I have to assume he's adopting senior dogs and then giving them a wonderful last few years of their life, but they're senior dogs, you know?
He could just be fostering.
He could be, but then he has to give them back. And also that makes me sad. Although fostering is great, people should do it, blah, 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 etc.
Do it.
But there's also 2 cats on there. So
he walks away from his beautiful foster fridge, and then he goes to sit down to watch Gail Weathers on the news. Like this is his morning
gut wrenching.
Watch his ex-wife on the news. Like, oh my god.
Ugh.
I
very sad.
Have complicated feelings about the choice to once again have separated Dewey and Gail.
Oh yeah, I'm fucking mad about it. I'm super mad about it. It was so sad. I was like, why couldn't they at least been happy together for the last 10 years? And then he fucking gets his guts ripped out of his body, you know? Like
that would have been a different movie for sure. And I think it would not have set us up to have the somewhat triumphant ending that we did in a way, because I feel like Gail obviously still loves Dewey, and she was like distraught over his death and she was sad. But I think a still married to Dewey Gail would have been like destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't think she would have been able to have like any kind of victory really at the end in that same way.
Yeah.
That said, I don't feel like Dewey would leave in the middle of the night after 2 months of being in New York. Like that's not That's so
weird.
dumb that they would never discuss it, that she would also never reach out. Like, she's an investigative journalist. You're telling me she's not going to like hunt him down essentially and then be like, what's the deal? But, and also the whole, he was meant to be in Woodsboro thing. Like, was he? He's living in a trailer by himself. Like, it would be one thing if he had moved back home with his mom, or something. Like, we never find out anything about the mom is in the first Scream. We see her when Sidney sleeps at Tatum's house, and then when Ghostface calls him there, like the mom is the one who hands the phone to Sidney. And like, you know, she's David Arquette is of very adult age, and so it's like maybe she's not around. But I think that could have been a nice choice to have him like home with mom, and that also could add to sort of still the like sad vibes without going totally trailer park by himself. That said, IMDb trivia would have me believe that that's sort of a reference to Jamie Lee Curtis in some of the Halloweens, and I've only seen the first Halloween, so I don't know if that's the case. But I guess she goes on kind of a similar journey at some point, and she's in a billion movies, you know what I mean? And apparently, you know, there's that video of Jamie Lee saying like it's about trauma like a billion different times in a billion different interviews about the Halloween franchise. And so, you know, fair enough that apparently at some point in the franchise she gets like very isolated from her family and like is on the outs with them, whatever. So she is like kind of self-isolating in the trailer or whatever. And it makes sense to me that Dewey would kind of also withdraw, especially after being asked to leave the Force or retire from the Force or whatever. And I do think it was kind of like a heroic, if somebody had to die, it did need to be Dewey. And I think they gave him a very heroic way to go out, where even though they stripped him of literally everything else good in his life, he went out protecting people.
Yeah.
And he went out kind of to a degree on his terms. Like he made the choice to like get back in the game for one last time to make sure that this is over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, they gave him his agency.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like part of me, one, he has his agency and stuff, but like, I feel like his death, like he was being a little dumb. You know what I mean? Like him going back, him like not taking the shot when he should have, him not taking the mask off. Like Dewey's been through this 5 times now, you know, like he knew better.
Well,
like,
they've never had a fucking bulletproof vest before, so
they didn't Scream 3, Monica.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember that movie, so you can't hold me to it.
Yeah, there was some Scream 3 erasure in this film. There was some not Scream 3 erasure because Sidney's husband Mark, I immediately was like Detective Mark Kincaid, Patrick Dempsey.
Detective Mark, LA homicide detective.
Yeah,
Mark
you know who
Kincaid.
didn't notice that? You know who didn't notice that? Me, Monica Height, and also Neve Campbell, also known as Neve Candle. She did not realize that is who her husband was. She said in this interview, to be honest, I didn't even realize it. I'm being really honest. Yeah, Courtney told me the other day, she was like, no, Mark. And I was like, oh my God, of course. I just knew I was happily married and had children. But for some reason, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So I don't blame myself for not.
No. And you shouldn't. And a lot of people didn't put that together. And it's very extremely, I think, kind of a strange decision to make it Detective Mark Kincaid and then like not make that clear. Unless they literally are just like still in conversations with Patrick Dempsey to work out his contract or whatever. So they were like, let's slip it in just in case he agrees to come on for Scream 6, but we didn't get him in time for Scream 5 and we can't use his likeness without his say so.
The movie was already 2 hours long. They had to cut.
Yeah, the movie is long,
right.
But it would have been very easy to like show her phone screen or something. You know what I mean? And it's like a lock screen of them and whatever. But there was the possibility because Martha Meeks's existence, Heather Matarazzo, Chad and Mindy's mom, her existence is only due to Scream 3. There was no other mention of her in the first Scream or in Scream 2 when Randy like has a larger role when they go to college and then he gets got. But so that was, they opened the door for that point. But then they kept being like, Billy Loomis started all of this. And it's like, okay, actually, if you are doing Scream 3 canon, Roman started all of this because he's the one that like put the idea in Billy's head. So let's just get that on the record. He
delivered
the
video to Billy.
Yeah.
True.
he started all this, and he's the original Bulletproof Vest Ghostface. So actually, speaking of Scream 3, I want to take a second to talk about all of the Stab movies, if we can, because obviously this movie talks a lot about Stab 8, and it's like the plot is a reaction to Stab 8, and Toxic Phantom in general, and I'm going to touch on that in a second, but right now I need to talk about all the Stabs, because here's the thing. They've given us a lot of Stab material already in the previous 4 films. Like, we know that the first Stab is about Scream 1. We can assume that Stab 2 was about Scream 2. On Scream 3, they're making Stab 3, and it's like Return to Woodsboro. And I think that maybe we actually see like a Tatum garage door reference in Scream 3 as well in the set pieces, but also they have a whole Maureen Prescott death scene set up, and so I wonder if maybe it was almost like a prequel as well. We know Jennifer Jolie was there.
Have been a prequel,
right?
Because I remember there's a quote in this movie where like, oh, the first 3 were about the original story, and then someone sued them, and so they had to like make up shit after that. Someone says something like that.
It's complicated, and I'm going to get into that in a second, but you're right, they did say that. But so I think there's room for at least the original plans for Stab 3 to have been a prequel, because obviously they didn't have a third Scream to work with yet at that time. Yes. Who knows if they finished that original Stab 3 or if that got scrapped and they had to make a new one based on the events of Scream 3. But
yeah, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, I think we can,
because the whole cast was dead.
Yeah, I choose to believe that maybe they did make their prequel because they already had a script, and then they were trying to take advantage of the media sensation of a new spring of Ghostface killings. And then Stab 4 was about the events of Scream 3. But in Scream 4, they have that opener where it shows Stab 5 and Stab 6, I think, or Stab 6 and Stab 7. Yeah, they show Stab 6 and Stab 7 openers. And then the girl from Friday Night Lights says the first 3, the original trilogy, is based off of Sidney Prescott, but then she threatened to sue them if they used her stories. So then they just started making stuff up. Stab 5 has time travel, which is by far the worst. But then in this movie, the new Scream, they say every Scream or every Stab except for Stab 8 has Sidney Prescott in it and is about like her story. So it's kind of conflicting information, but regardless, we know what happens in Stab 1, Stab 2, Stab 3, maybe prequel, Stab 4, maybe Scream 3, Stab 5, time travel ? Stab 6 is the one with Lucy Hale and Shanae Grimes. Stab 7 is the one with Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell. And then Stab 8 is the new one that's bad and doesn't have Sidney. But so there was never a Stab made about the events of Scream 4.
No, because they probably weren't allowed to anymore because of the lawsuit that happened with Sidney back in the day. ?
Or maybe remember Jill wanted her own movie, and so maybe they were like, you cannot make a movie about Jill.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, maybe that because she was a minor, they weren't allowed to do it. But that makes something that's really interesting, because if that's the case, then why the fuck are Amber and Richie doing what they're doing if the story that they're creating cannot be used for Stab 9? You know what I mean?
Right. I think once you die, your privacy protections die with you. So I don't know that would prevent them because they're minors, although also they might just be 18. Jack for sure. I don't know what his character's name is. Jack Quaid. He's for sure like 23.
Richie.
Yeah.
Richie.
Well,
yeah.
Richie. Okay. That's something that I want to talk about a little, like just like a brief, like 1, 2. How old are these people supposed to be? Because, or Sam, because it was like she was 18 and ran away like 5
she's
years
been gone
ago.
for 5 years. Yeah. So
she's 23.
So she's 23, but we're 25 years after the original Billy Loomis murder. So Billy couldn't be her dad because he'd been dead for 2 years.
La 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 la.
I had some real cogs turning there because you're right. I kept in my head being like, she's 25. I think they literally say at the end when they're doing like the pullback on the final scene, mimicking the end of the first Scream, and then you have the reporter in the yellow suit mimicking Gail's brightly colored suits. And by the way, how come Gail's fashion is not allowed to be fun anymore? But
that was a cute.
It hasn't been fun since Scream 3, frankly. They had her in her red power suit, but that's very like of the era. And Gail used to be like over the top, cutting edge. Like she was like
thing
camp,
that some
you know what I mean?
middle-aged older people do where they start dressing less wild. And don't worry, baby, I'll never do that. Come on, people.
I don't think Gail would either.
The funk going.
And also, why was Sidney wearing essentially the same outfit as Judy Hicks, but in slightly different colors? Sidney would wear a muscle tee to go on a run, and I know this in my heart. Anyway, don't shake your head. She would.
I just think I was watching Scream 4 over the weekend, and I was like, God, they do her dirty with her outfits
so
every
dirty.
fucking time.
They did her a lot better in this movie. They let her wear the leather jacket.
Oh yeah, she looked hot in this movie.
Yeah.
Like
they brought it back a little. They didn't go all the way, but
even in Scream 1, I was watching it and I was like, everybody's got these fuego ass outfits, and then like Sidney does not.
She does not, but also that made sense
like
for
that.
her character because she says in the movie like
it's canon that she has bad fashion taste.
Yeah, no, she says in the movie like my mom was a slut and I'm really trying to be a good girl so people don't think I'm a slut too, basically. So she in her little like red flower dress, she was projecting an image that was not her. Because I know in my heart she would have dressed way cooler and gayer if she was being herself, which she does in Scream 2 and Scream 3. Anyway, but you're right. The ending shot when they pull back and we see the Gail reference reporter, I think she literally says like almost 25 years to the day since blah, blah, blah. So they're for sure not rounding up, but also Tara and her friends are for sure in high school, which makes them like no older than 18, which makes Sam no older than 23. So there's definitely some timeline weirdness here.
Yeah. I think they just like to say 5 years, but it's like, you gotta say more than that. You gotta say.
Or there needs to be a bigger age gap between her and Tara. That would have really solved the issue. You know what I mean?
Well, they never say explicitly how old each one of them is. But she just says that she left when she was 18 and she was gone for 5 years.
They say when Tara said, or Sam says when she was 13 and Tara was 8, that's when she found out.
Yeah, they do mention.
Oh, yeah. How many years is that? Quick.
5.
Do simple subtraction. Okay, yeah.
13 and 8, 18 and 23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to talk about. Yeah, it was a mistake. I want to talk about, before I forget and before I lose my chance, the hallucination thing again, because we touched on it a little. And I think it's like kind of an interesting choice for a horror movie, because like we've talked about this with like The Roommate and stuff. Mental health issues like so often get a bad rap in horror, and so I do think it's kind of an interesting choice to have her be like the pseudo protagonist and be the one who's having hallucinations. And also, in my opinion, like the movie never uses that to cast suspicion on her in any way. Like maybe in that first ghost face attack for a second you're meant to like question her as an unreliable narrator. But other than that, like I thought the movie did a really good job of casting at least a little bit of suspicion on everybody else, but never on her. And so I think to like let that be present on screen and have her not be a villain and have her in fact be a hero is kind of an interesting choice. But then also, does she just have to live with visions of her dead biological father with blood on him forever? You know what I mean? And are they going to have their own mini series where she and her hallucination father solve crimes? Because that's what I'd like to see. That's what I want from them.
Real life, my dad was a serial killer.
Yes,
It's
and
like
they
a
solve
buddy
crimes.
comedy. Yeah, love that.
That's what I think is next for the franchise, personally.
God damn it. Wes would roll over in his grave.
I think he'd love it. They make the whole there was time travel in Stab 5 joke in Scream 4 because the way that the Nightmare on Elm Street movies went fully off the rails. And actually, he was making fun of that, and he was saying that that's bad. But that said, if they gave me, and I don't think it should be a full TV show. I just think it should be like 5 short 3-minute videos of Sam and her hallucination of her dead biological serial killer father solving crimes, kind of like the way in Hannibal Will Graham like embodies the serial killer's brains or whatever to figure things out, you know what I mean? But she's got a serial killer in her head who's
I'd watch it. I'd watch the show. I'd watch the show.
Yeah.
Okay. But okay, in this Hollywood Reporter article I was telling you guys about, there was this reference to this idea about what Scream 6 could be. I'm going to read it to you because the words made no sense to me when I first read it, but this is what it said. This is a quote from the interviewer. I recently read an interesting idea for a Scream movie that leans into the meta sides of things even more. Basically, it would take place in the real world where he's talking to Nev Campbell, where you'd play a fictional Nev Campbell. Fucking hell, I'm gonna say Candle every time. And that would allow all of the past victims to come back as fictional versions of their real life selves. And instead of using horror tropes to solve a real world ghost face threat, you'd also have to rely on your own Scream movies for guidance. So is playing Nev Campbell in a Scream movie going too far down the rabbit hole for you? And I was like, what the fuck? That's like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
The other day that they did that in one of the other movies.
No, I was just, that's what I was going to say next. Is this Scream New Nightmare? Like, is that what this idea is supposed to be? Because apparently that's what New Nightmare is about. It's like within the Nightmare on Elm Street verse or whatever universe. And it's like the actor who, I haven't seen it, so if I get this a little bit wrong, don't kill me. But the actor who plays Freddy Krueger is the star, but he's himself, and he's being haunted by Freddy Krueger or something somehow. I don't know. It sounds awesome. So I think that they just are trying to make that happen in the Scream universe, which like I feel like we're 4 movies away from that idea.
Yeah,
but
maybe
Wes, I think, would appreciate
Scream
it.
9.
Yeah, Scream 9. We're
Scream
not
9.
there yet. We haven't jumped to the shark basically at all yet, kind of. But I don't feel like we have jumped the shark yet. So let's not just like skip 3 very marketable films that we could do and go straight to this. But
yeah,
that's a really interesting idea.
Would prefer my crime solving show first, and then maybe we can do that idea afterwards.
Perfect.
That said, I would love more Nev Campbell. You know what I mean?
She has to be in the rest of them.
That's the thing that was the weakest part about this for me, is that like Scream is Sidney's story. Point blank. She's the heart of it. It's her story. Even when she was not there for much of Scream 3, it's about her. It always comes back to her. She's the heart of the franchise. And Scream 4 did a good try of trying to reboot it as a new trilogy and introduce us to some new characters to follow. I'm not sure how that would have played out exactly if it had gone their way and I'd
watch it with Kirby. Okay.
Right. I'd watch it with
yes,
Kirby, but
I would too.
That's one person. You know what I mean? And if it was like a whole new crew we were supposed to follow, like, is she going to be besties with Sidney? And there's just
maybe somebody else survived.
Maybe. They could have made that decision after the fact. But I felt like they gave it a go trying to get us to care about a new cast of characters. And again, people love Kirby, and people wanted Kirby to return.
Yeah.
But I
But everybody else was fucking dead. So there
Yeah,
wasn't a
yeah.
chance there was no chance. Everyone was dead. As far as you knew.
And there are a lot more survivors this time around. And so they have like a built-in cast of characters to follow. But again, I kind of feel like if it's not Sidney's story, it loses a lot of the heart for me.
She has to be in it. And it's also interesting in this article. She said that like she wouldn't want to do a Scream movie where Sidney dies because she feels like her like being a survivor and survivor all of these things is like so important to so many people, and it's like really resonates with people that she still overcomes after all this horrific fucking trauma constantly, my god. And so like she can never like die in this. It's like it's really interesting because I was thinking about all the parallels to this from this franchise and the reboot of it with what they've done with Halloween, because let's be real, I have not seen very many Halloween movies, but I have seen some, one of which being the 2018 movie called Halloween. So they did the same thing that Scream did now in 2022, where they named it the same as the original, but it's like a continuation of the story. But the thing they do in Halloween is that it's always about Jamie Lee. Jamie Lee. Sorry, I've been thinking about Britney Spears a lot lately. It's always about Jamie Lee. And I feel like people like love that, hokey as it could get at some points. And I haven't seen every single one of them, but I know she's in H2O and I know she's in this one. I know she's in Halloween Kills. And so like and that works, and those still do really, really well. So like if they get rid of Jamie Lee, no one's going to want to see it. If they get rid of Sidney Prescott, they get rid of Neve Campbell, and I said her name right that time, no one's going to want to see it.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's interesting about Halloween and the difference, and they kind of talk about it in this movie, is Halloween has Michael Myers. Like Nightmare on Elm Street has Freddy Krueger. We have these built-in villains who can be the person who comes back in other franchises. We get a new ghost face every time in Scream.
Which makes it more interesting for me.
For me, I think that's a more interesting story, but it means that the person who has to return to be the hook is Sidney. And I just don't. I could see them if Patrick Dempsey agrees to be part of the franchise. I could see Sidney's family taking a starring role in a new Scream movie. I could see that being a really compelling storyline. And I could see, I would love to have more of a relationship between Gail and Sidney, frankly, especially now with like the absence of Dewey kind of could pull them together. You know what I mean? And they could at least like share that loss. What are you going to say? Are they going to kiss?
Oh, yeah. I was like, do you think she'll leave Mark Kincaid, her and Gail will get married, and then eventually like Scream 10, Scream 11 will be about Sidney's kids and her and Gail's one child that they had with bone marrow?
Their blended family. I think it should be a throuple situation because I really wanted Sidney to have a wife. And before I saw this movie in theaters, I did one last prayer for Sidney to have a wife, and then she had a husband. It is. Mark Kincaid is the only man I would accept. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they kind of left the door open for that at the end of Scream 3, where he's with her and Dewey and Gail at her house watching a movie. And she feels safe, whatever. And then they don't mention him in Scream 4, which is fine because obviously their children are little. They must have gotten together fairly recently in the last 10 years between Scream 4 and this movie. And I think it makes sense for after he sees another bloodbath starring Sidney Prescott on the news that he would reach out and be like, hey girl, you okay? They reconnect, they fall in love.
Beautiful love connection.
Exactly.
He gets it. He's been through it.
Well, and too, like, Sidney ending up with a cop makes a lot of sense.
A cop who'd been there for her not just any cop, because a lot of the cops,
some of the cops are done
in these movies, but somebody who like has been there for her and helped protect her in the past, and has proved themselves trustworthy. And also, frankly, I think has some of those kind of heart squeezy connections to Dewey in that way, because I've talked about we've talked about like the weird sexual tension between them in Scream 4. And it's like the love that those two characters share is like so real and so rich and so deep to me. Like I went on a Scream 2 revisit lately, and the relationship that they have happens mostly off screen and in subtext, but he's just like her best friend's older brother in the first Scream. And then in the second Scream, he hears about something tangentially related to her. He immediately flies across the country to be there for her and to help protect her.
Well,
And then in Scream 3, that someone is like going looking for files on Sidney, and he immediately like takes that job with the movie to like figure out what's going on and protect her. Like he is so there for her and ready to be there for her and care for her and protect her at any given moment, and it's beautiful.
She's like a stand-in for Tatum now. It's like his little sister.
And so like him and Gail is the love story, and it should be. But their relationship is like so special and important to me. And so it's explicitly platonic, but I could see her finding like a Dewey-esque figure to be the romantic lead in her life.
I totally see that. Okay, I mean, we've talked about all the emotional things that happen in this movie, but like, let's talk about the real blood and guts of it all, because like the fucking kills in this movie,
oh my God,
there's so much murder, and it was fucking awesome. And I was really scared, and I made so many noises in the theater while I was watching this. I was also deeply distressed because I saw this with Adam. And Adam likes to plug both of his ears during scary parts, and therefore no one can hold my hand. And so I was very upset when Chelsea and I saw it. We held hands, and so I was fine and I was safe. But it was very hard to watch. Okay, the worst one for me was Wes.
Yeah. Super gross. The Ready or Not influence was so clear, I think, above all else in the kills in this movie.
They know how to kill someone.
Right. I thought it was interesting though, because like in Ready or Not, it serves such a specific purpose of, it's like kind of a cartoony movie. It's very like over the top, you know what I mean? And I think having the gore be so visceral in that film, especially when most of it comes at Grace's expense, and she's the heart of the movie and she's the protagonist and we follow her the whole time pretty much. To me, it serves a really specific narrative purpose in that movie to be like, this is a real person and this is real harm being perpetrated against them, and it's not funny, it's horrifying. And then it felt kind of just stylistic in this movie, just to be like, this is stylistic of the directors for me.
No, I mean, no, I think that they're going back to basics with Scream. Like, I just watched Scream 1. You know how many fucking innards you see in the first Scream? You see people's guts out of their fucking body. Even in Scream, yes, you see their fucking gut. You see
the first Scream is
Steve,
very
the
violent.
boyfriend, Drew Barrymore's boyfriend. You see his fucking guts come out. In Scream 4, I watched Scream and Scream 4 leading up to my second viewing of Scream 5. And so this is fresh in my mind. That's the only reason I remember it. Scream 4, what's her fucking name? Olivia, maybe?
What's her name?
Olivia.
Super, really beautiful
you're talking about
Olivia,
friend who gets got first. You see her crunched on the bed. Her guts are spewing out of her stomach all over everything. The whole entire room is painted red in her blood. Like Scream 2, I can't remember how gory it is. Scream 3, certainly have no fucking clue, but I think that there was no blood in that one, pretty much.
No blood.
But like, there is a history of insane gore in these movies, and I'm glad they brought it back for this. Like,
which I love. I like. I don't know. The more fake blood, the merrier, in my opinion. You know, like
Sydney, that's her.
But
that's her tagline.
Neck skin separating.
Oh my god!
I will say though, one thing that I loved about Wes is like, I liked the build up to Wes's death, where he's like walking around and you can like kind of
open so many doors.
He opens so many doors. You can like, there's like a black coat that you're like, is this Ghostface? And it's not like, him setting up like plates
Little
for him and
sushi
his
dinner.
mom.
I know, he
who's,
got out
like,
her
dead
white wine.
outside, right? Know what I mean? Like,
It was so sad. And he was so prepared to fight too. He had his taser, he had bear spray or whatever, all that shit. He was ready to go, but he was in his home where he thought he was safe. And he thought
Right.
his mommy was coming back for him. But oh god, something about the way that knife went into his neck like that triggered my like needle phobia, because I cannot watch needles go into skin in horror movies, which they do all the fucking time. Not even just in horror movies, in like the most casual like rom-com, then they're like, oh, he's getting a shot and here's the needle going in. They love to show it. I hate to see it, but that I was thrashing around in my chair like unhinged. But they do a lot of like the slow stabby things in this too. Didn't somebody else get a slow stab? Oh, the hand. That's what I was thinking of. When freaking Tara gets stabbed in the hand and is pushing with her. Oh god, that was so fucked up. And and then they bring it back when she's in the hospital and they put her on the private floor. Because let me just say, when they said, oh, we'll put you on a private floor, immediately I was like, a horrible mistake. A horrible mistake. That is not safe. That is less safe.
Although it kind of explains why the hospital is so empty in Scream 4. They must have had a private floor then too. Why do they have so many empty floors in a hospital?
It wasn't a pandemic.
That's something that I wanted to. A clear reference to Scream 4 is the lack of good hospital staff. Like, I shit you not.
Yeah.
Like Woodsboro Hospital is the worst hospital on the planet.
Like, drive me somewhere else.
Sarah makes a good point at the end. When she's literally any other hospital will do.
Yeah,
right.
Seriously. No, thank you.
Okay, can we talk about the rules that Dewey lays out and that Mindy lays out? Because I disagree with some of them, actually. I mean, I guess, okay, it's complicated because Dewey says these are the rules for surviving a stab movie. So maybe those are the rules for surviving a stab movie, but they are not the rules for surviving a Scream movie. Like, the first one he says is never trust the love interest, which I don't think is a bad rule necessarily, but it only applies
the first one, but not the second.
Exactly. It only applies to the first Scream. In the second Scream, the killers, Mickey explicitly uses that fear to make Sidney not trust someone who is trustworthy.
Yeah,
and explicitly uses
her a song.
Yes, Derek, who serenades her. Although I do think it's interesting, when Richie got attacked at the hospital, he got like slashed on the arm in the exact same way that Derek got attacked at the sorority house. And that was used to cast suspicion on Derek in that movie, to be like, see, he's not even that hurt, and he's a medical student, and so he knows he could have gotten slashed in this place and been fine or whatever. So just an interesting callback. But that being the first rule did not ring true with what we have seen of the franchise. That said, I did think it was interesting that Dewey says that, and then later on in the movie, Richie says, like, isn't the first rule of these movies don't split up? And it's like, I see you trying to distract me from what Dewey said the first rule was, and I'm not buying it, Richie. Although I did buy it. He did get me. So
yeah, I was like, wow, I guess it's not Richie. And then I was surprised. Amber, I was like, she was gone for too long in the middle of the movie. And so they did that on purpose, so you forget about her a little bit. But then I was like, oh, we haven't seen her in a really long time.
She does like all of the kills. Like,
that's the other thing that I wanted to bring
her.
up. I wrote that in my notes after watching it. I was like, how the fuck did Amber do some of these kills? Like, she's just not that big. Is she like secretly trained in fucking like jujitsu? I don't know if that's something that you fight with, but like, is her body a weapon? Like, how?
Yes,
I do love that Ghostface, like, because traditionally Ghostface is so clumsy. He's like all like, it's so good.
Yeah,
but then
you're Stu in there.
But it's like, in all the movies, like, he is just this like notoriously like clumsy killer, and it's so funny and so fun. But then this is the second movie where you're just like, okay, like, can none of these people take like 120-pound girl on?
Well, but the thing about Ghostface being clumsy in all the other movies is usually we see him being clumsy when he's attacking Sydney, which is always kind of like question mark, because then there's always a grand reveal scene at the end where they do their whole monologue to Sydney. And so it's always like, okay, were they actually trying to kill Sydney earlier? Or were they just torturing her?
Totally.
And so there has to be like some way for her to get away without them just being like, see you later. And so question mark. But I don't know. It was interesting because the second time around, I was trying to watch and see, like, does she look small next to any of them? And
She's
what I really didn't, maybe,
I don't know
what I really didn't pay attention to, that I wish I had, is if she's wearing long sleeves the first time that we see her when they're sitting at the picnic benches, because in that first scene at the picnic benches, she points out the bruises on Chad's arms and says, like, Tara said that she fought back hard, you're bruised, because they're all immediately pointing the finger at each other and being like, it must be one of us, which, like, first of all,
which I love.
A jump to conclusions, though, but it's fine.
I've seen the other stab movies.
I love when Chad said, when his girlfriend Liv is like, oh, do you want to like go upstairs, and he's like, not really, I don't know if you're not the murderer.
And
that was
so funny. That was so funny. I liked his character a lot. I thought we didn't get a lot of him, but I just think I like that actor because I love Victor a lot. So
yeah. I the only person in that crew who I hadn't seen in something before was Liv. And I think they gave her the least to do kind of for that reason, and they were a little bit casting suspicion on her by telling you so many times in the beginning it's not her, until that moment at the end where she goes, maybe it is me. But I love that she just like stole Mindy's chips and was like, fuck you. But they have that moment with Chad in the beginning, and then at the end at the party I did notice that Amber is wearing a frankly ugly outfit with long sleeves under her shirt so that you don't see any bruises or anything on her body.
There's, I think in the first Tara scene, he gets fucking like domed on the kitchen island. He gets his head. Well, I mean, I said he, but it was Amber. She gets domed. And I was like, if it was me, I'd have a big fucking huge bruise on my forehead if that had happened. And somehow, maybe she's just got real good.
She's got cushion in the mask. But yeah, okay, let's talk about the end for a second. Because like I said earlier, I thought they did a really good job of casting at least a little bit of suspicion on everybody, except for Sam. And I think the way that they cast suspicion on Tara was so great, because we know the rules of a Scream movie, whatever they're saying in the movie, disregard for a moment. But we know that if you're in the opener, you die. And the first Scream was like subverting that, because people thought that Drew Barrymore was going to be the star. They thought she was going to play such a huge role in the movie, and then they kill her off right away. And so for this movie to be the new Scream, they had to do something a little different. And so they let her live, which is subversive within the rules of the franchise. But also, we as the audience know you're not allowed to survive the opener. And so to use that to cast suspicion on her after the fact, I thought was really interesting and well done, because they're playing not just on Sam's fears of, do you really know your sister, and could she have done this to draw you back, and blah blah blah, but they're playing on the audience's suspicion as well, to be like, she's not allowed to survive. What if that was on purpose? Like, what if that was by design? And I thought that was very cool and interesting.
I know you said that they do a good job casting suspicion on everyone, but not for a second did I think Mindy did it. I was like, she's my girl. She didn't do it. She's wonderful.
No, of course she didn't do it.
I mean, she is like spooky in the basement scene.
Yeah, for 1 second in the basement scene.
Just like flirty for me. That's like, I was like, she's just flirting, man. Like, that's what's happening right now.
They're just lesbians.
They
just should have kissed.
They should have kissed.
We still got a gay
We did
kiss.
get
The most amazing,
Francis.
casual, hilarious thing. She's like, I'm just gonna sit here, have some snacks. I might hook up with Francis later. And you look over at Francis, and Francis is like, yeah, I'm down.
Francis is like, I'm open to that.
She's like, I'm gonna get high, eat some snacks, and make out with Francis.
And Francis
Amazing
said,
plan. It
ready
sounds
when
like
you
a
are,
great
babe.
night.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's
Incredible.
probably what I'm gonna do later tonight.
And I love that our first canon Scream gay character is a lesbian, because whatever his name was in Scream 4, that didn't really count because they
I
didn't
think
quite
he was
commit
just
to it.
saying
Yeah.
that to try to survive because he had
Right,
said it
because-
earlier in the movie.
And then he says,
Yeah.
I'm gay if it helps. And so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're strategic and I respect the attempt. I will not be accepting it. I will absolutely accept this lovely lesbian kissing another lady on screen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving that gift to me.
And one
If
thing
we
I just
can't
wanna
have gay Sydney, at least we've got some other gays.
Yeah.
Well, you've
I'm-
got one gay Sydney, so it's fine.
Thank God. And we have her with us always.
important.
The one thing I really liked about the ending, and I know Chelsea, I think you might have said you didn't like this, but I thought that the way that they shot the party scene at the end, at the beginning of that scene, when the party is still going on, I think the way that they shot it, they did such an awesome job of masking the fact that it's Stu's house, because they just did the shots differently than the original movie, right? They just shot it from a different angle or whatever. And obviously it's been redecorated because it's 25 years later.
Yeah, and the beer
outside of the
fridge
house
is
is
down in the
different.
basement, not in the garage.
Yeah, I think also the house has gone through a remodel because the way
There is no garage at the end. Yeah.
yeah, I think that they like added another
But
segment
you
to
can't
it
have
with
a
the basement.
Can you?
I don't know. It might be on a hill, and so they might have like done some like lower of the property thing. But I'm not an architect, and that's not what I wanted to say. Like, that's not my point. But like, I loved that all of a sudden, once that reveal was made, all the shots were like shot in the same way as the old movie. You start looking at
Mhm.
Mindy on the couch,
Yeah.
and she's in the same, like she's sitting in
Position.
the same way that her uncle had been sitting when Randy had been sitting there all those
When he
years
was
ago.
watching Jamie Lee in Halloween.
Exactly. And I fucking love that they paralleled that scene exactly where she's like telling her like, oh, just turn around, except this time she remembers what she's seen in Stab's past, and she knows what almost happened to her uncle, and so she actually does turn around. And I thought that was so funny.
I didn't think they did a bad job revealing the house. I just felt very tricked, which was their goal, but I felt hurt by that.
You're the strangest woman that I know, and I love you.
I was like, why would you trick me on purpose? It's not nice. Like, it's
a
one
fucking
thing-
mystery
I know,
movie.
but it's one thing if there's a reveal, and there's another thing to be like, you thought, you stupid little idiot. Little did you
You're
realize.
internalizing
Like, how
this too
dare
much.
you?
They're not calling you an idiot, Chelsea.
they
You're
did. They spat in my
no,
face.
they didn't. It's okay. I'll give you a hug
Stupid
later. We'll
bitch.
talk through it. But yeah, there was that part where all of a sudden it got really quiet, and the narrator said, "Chelsea, you stupid bitch! It's
Yeah.
been Stu's house this whole time." Did you guys catch that part? It was really quick. It was a blink and you missed it.
It hurts my feelings.
Chelsea is having her own special hallucination.
I want to be smart and I want to realize things, and they didn't let me. They hid it from me on purpose.
Don't you like being surprised sometimes though, and not guessing the ending first? I like that. I like a
when
surprise.
there's enough foreshadowing for you to get an idea of what might be happening, because you can see that they're laying the groundwork. I
Well,
don't
they
like
did.
when I refuse.
They
I
did,
didn't
but
see it,
like you would
therefore it
have
was
been
not
really
there.
smart to guess
yeah,
that.
there was
But like
not
the
enough
whole
time.
requel thing, you know,
Yes.
it would have been if they'd given you more hints, it wouldn't have been as sexy. But also like I just loved Amber. I just love Amber for one thing. she gets to this point in the movie, like at the end, where she's just like, yeah, bitch, the pretense is gone. I'm gonna shoot Liv point blank in the fucking head. She's like, she's not the killer, I am. And then she like does that same type of thing like 5 different times. Like when she runs out the front door, she's pretending to be hurt. Oh God, help me, help you. And Gail and Sydney are like, is it real? And she just goes, fuck it, and starts shooting at
Oh my
her.
God, that was so
great.
funny.
That was great.
That was one of my favorite moments. Like at first, when I first watched it, I was so caught up being mad that it wasn't Stu, which was dumb of me. That I just like was like, the end is cringe. And I watched it again. It's not cringe. It's great. It was great. But yeah, I mean, I also some references, some beautiful references in the final scene that I noticed. I loved when Jack Quaid, Richie, and Sam fall down the stairs together, because it is definitely just a little throwback to when Billy like very dramatically fake falls down the stairs to be like, I'm so hurt, but he hasn't even been stabbed yet. And there's also a reference to when at the end Sydney of the first movie, Sydney grabs the umbrella and stabs Billy with the umbrella. And so there's that point where Sam's trying to find a weapon and she's going towards the umbrellas. And I was like, yeah. But then her ghost daddy is like, no, baby, there's a knife.
You're not a
Use
Sydney
the
girl.
knife.
You're a Billy.
Yes.
Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I loved all of that. I loved that she is a Billy and not a Sydney, because we have a Sydney already. I thought that she was very sexy when she went into hyper killer mode and started just absolutely stabbing the shit out of Richie. And then she had her like sexy knife cleaning moment.
She did the knife thing. That
was her corn syrup moment to me. And I thought it was very hot, and I thought good for her. I also thought, God, Richie is fucking lucky as hell that Sydney hung up on Ghostface when she did, because she shot him a second later. And if he was in the closet on the phone when he got shot, he would have been found immediately. And
cover would have been
to be
blown.
like, I'm just hiding because I'm innocent and there's killers here.
Yeah, and
he got lucky.
I loved his reveal too, that he was one of the killers, that he like goes to like hold on to Sam because he's just gotten his leg shot and he stabs her in the fucking gut and then literally turns the knife. Like, it's a little literal there.
One thing about the Scream movies is you will survive like anything to the
You're
stomach.
Gonna walk around like, with a bullet through your gut. It's fine.
But like if you get shot in the stomach, you're gonna live. You're gonna make it. You're gonna survive.
Yeah, that's like Chelsea and I were sitting in the theater at the end of the movie, the very, very, very end, the bitter end. And like Sam's walking around, she's talking to everybody. She's like, how are you doing, Chad? How's it going, Mindy? Hey, Tara. And then like Courtney Cox or Gail is just sitting over there holding her side. Sydney's on her fucking cell phone. I was like, you were all stabbed or shot and you have not gone to the hospital yet.
Here's the thing,
just chilling.
They said this
we all know
is plenty, frankly.
They all know the Woodsboro Hospital is garbage and they're like, we do not want to go there.
They said, I'll take my chances with this ace bandage, thanks.
Gail's just like, yeah, I'll just keep the bullet inside me forever. That's fine. It's
just, frankly, maybe it was a through and through, which honestly would be better, because if the bullet stays inside you, it's like more damaging for your body, because all the if it goes straight through, there's less damage to your organs. But Tara was the only one on a gurney, and she had previous injuries that had been good enough to send her home before. And then she suffered the least amount of additional injuries in the finale. She should not have been the only one in the gurney. Other people should have been on gurneys.
How did she get downstairs? Isn't Amber's room upstairs? Maybe her room is downstairs. Because I was like, how'd she get downstairs to do all that stuff? And people would have heard her being like, with her boot, you know? But yeah, I did love the callback once again, her final line after she shoots. Who did she shoot? Amber?
Amber, yeah. Said,
I still prefer the Babadook.
That's why she's the hero. That's why she's the hero. But I really loved Mikey Madison's delivery of the line. I don't know why. I thought it was so funny when Richie is like, go get Tara. And I really thought for a second that they were going to let Tara be a survivor. And then I was like, that's very give, Amber. And then that didn't seem to be the case after all. But when she goes to get her and she's not there, she goes, she's not here. And the way that she like really ends it on that uptick, I thought that was very funny.
Her whole character, like all of her delivery is so fucking funny. Like when she like keeps like switching her story and being like, oh, I was radicalized by online commenters. And Gail's like, you were radicalized by film fans or something like that. It was so funny.
You know, I think the discussion around toxic fandom is like very relevant and needed.
Yeah,
because
Joe
like,
Rogan.
Yeah, and well, that also. But with the Star Wars, nobody who listens to astronauts will listen. Whatever, maybe cut that out. I don't know. There shouldn't be no Venn diagram. There's two separate circles.
I surely hope not. My God.
Anyway, but the Rian Johnson Star Wars stuff is so interesting because the toxic fandom surrounding Star Wars was like so terrible and bad, and like they bullied Kelly Marie Tran off the internet after that Star Wars movie. Essentially,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was like it was really intense and awful. And like people were terrible to John Boyega as well. Like it was a lot of really gross, bad fandom behavior. And I think it's an interesting conversation to have because like as someone who is not a Supernatural fan, but I like to say that I'm not in the Supernatural fandom, but I'm in the Supernatural fandom. So I love to watch the drama that goes on with them. That is a show that does not love its audience. And so I think there's a lot of really valid conversations around a show should love its audience, a movie should love its audience. Who are you writing it for, if not your audience? But the audience also does not have like ownership of the thing. And so in the whole, you don't get to create your own stab 8 redo movie. Like, yeah, they call it fan fucking fiction at one point. That's what you're supposed to do. Go write your own fix it fic. We've all been there and it's fine.
Right.
I promise you go on the internet, you just write your little fan fiction, you post it on Archive of Our Own and you move on with your life.
Go to fanfiction.net.
Yeah, I mean you could, but it's a little outdated.
Sorry, talk to Chelsea. She's the one who knows.
I'm the expert. But I thought that was an interesting conversation to have. I did feel like they were retreading a lot of the same ground as Scream 4 in the whole requel territory. And so I couldn't quite tell if it was like they loved Scream 4 or they didn't, you know what I mean? If there was any shade,
they were like justice for Scream 4. There are some really good ideas in there, and for some reason you motherfuckers didn't like it, and so we're gonna
talking to you and me
and again. Hey, no, I loved it the second time. I was just in a bad mood. And I watched it again this weekend, and I had a fucking blast. So it's fine.
That said, they did go a little further with this one because that one had an entry point to the new crew, but this one really was like the way they did the legacy characters versus enough times. I think adding in Chad and Mindy as Randy's nephew and niece helped a lot. And I think that having Sam as Billy's daughter is like question mark, but also whatever, I accept the premise. And I thought it was interesting that we literally never see their mom, considering she was presumably in Sydney's grade. And yeah, she was in England, and we got her name. I realized the second time around her name is Christina Carpenter or whatever. They say her name in the beginning, so she has a name, but I just thought it was weird considering that Sydney is there and so is Judy Hicks, and we know that they were in the same grade at Woodsboro High, and we know this mystery woman was also in the same grade at them. And was she at the party in the first Scream? Maybe she was one of the girls at the party, possibly, who knows.
Chelsea, they're not,
She
let
could have been. I'm
let
just
them
saying.
come up with random shit 25 years later.
I know.
It's not going to be there.
I'm just saying that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Or she could be that cheerleader, or she's probably not white. So she's probably not the cheerleader from the bathroom. Who's such a bitch about Sydney.
We barely see anyone in that movie, and Billy probably would have stayed the hell away from her if he's trying to keep it from Sydney. So there you go.
I do think, of course, Billy was cheating on Sydney. That makes a lot of narrative sense to me.
Oh yeah,
especially
so
since his whole
horny.
thing was "you won't fuck me."
He was so horny. He was just the horniest man alive in the most toxic way, and so
he was sleeping with Stu, and he was sleeping with this mysterious Christina.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that brings us to our segments here. And the first one always being, how could it be gayer? And like, luckily, we don't even have to make it gayer if we don't want to. Obviously, we want to because we got it, baby. We got it. And I'm so happy about it.
Yeah.
All we needed is for Mindy and Amber to kiss.
Yes.
Or Amber and Tara to kiss.
Oh, yeah. That's all we needed. That's all that I want for it to be more gayer.
But already, frankly, she should be a lesbian. But there are some bisexual vibes with Amber when she goes to kill Gail, being like, I can't believe I get to do both of you, you and Dewey. That's bisexual vibes.
Yes. 100%. That line was fantastic. But yeah, I mean,
Tara should be gay. Amber should be gay. Mindy's already gay. Thank God.
Sydney should be gay.
Sydney should be gay.
Sydney should be gay.
We know this.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the classic question. Where should Matthew Lillard be in this movie? And I just have a radical thought that maybe he should be Stu Macher. I don't know.
That would be crazy.
I don't know. It's like might be a stretch for him, but I
really
do it.
Opportunity for him. Nothing he's ever done before.
I think he would have been a great ghost face.
Okay, so something totally different. Yeah.
Something totally unexpected
really
too, like I think there should have been a third ghost face.
There technically was, and it technically was Matthew Lillard because he's supposed to be the gold-faced ghost face from
Jason
Stab
X reference.
8. Yes, it was totally a Jason X reference.
Okay, so dumb bitch. Who's the dumb bitch?
Okay.
Me for thinking that Stu was gonna be the killer and then getting myself all upset when he wasn't. I'm the dumb bitch because I ruined the end for myself by just fully living in my own little fantasy world. I was pissed at the end of the movie at first, but then, time heals all wounds.
The movie tried to make me the dumb bitch, but I won't go down my hurt feelings route again. But that's what they wanted, and they got it for a moment there. I hope they're happy.
I think this dumb bitch is, I don't know. I feel like Richie's more of the dumb bitch than Amber because I just like Amber more.
And Amber's literally living in Stu's house. Yeah, she does all of the killing. She lives in Stu's house. She's the one that goes on the internet message boards. He's just some rando. You know what I mean? Like, this is her thing. He had no entry point. She said,
for it.
I am best friends with the sister of Billy Loomis's daughter. She was the one bringing everything to the table. He didn't even do anything until he showed up and stabbed Sam at the end.
No. And he got himself shot in the leg. And then also just a little side note, I was so excited when I watched this with Chelsea because I was like, I figured out the whole fucking movie. Listen to this, Chelsea. And then she immediately told me I was wrong, which I was. But there's this point in the hospital scene when Dewey and Sam are coming to save Tara when she's all alone at the hospital. And Richie walks into Tara's room and scares the shit out of her and was like, hey, Sam told me to come check on you. And then right then Ghostface comes, slashes him in the arm, and then bonks his head against the door, and then he's down for the count. And I was like, what a little bitch. But then right after that, his phone rings and Ghostface picks it up and turns his little voice thing on, which was cool. And it's like, and she's like, hey, Richie, are you at the hospital? And I was like, oh my God, he hadn't gotten the call from Sam yet to come check on Tara, and it was all a ruse, and that's how you know that he was the killer. But Chelsea was like, she could have like just been calling him again to see if he had gotten to the hospital yet. And so I was like, oh, okay. But I thought I was the smartest bitch alive.
You
no.
might have been. I mean, mine is conjecture. You know what I mean? That could not have been the authorial intent.
Okay, commenters, comment. Let me know. Do you think I'm right? But yeah, dumb bitch is Richie. We love him. I love Jack Quaid. He was great in this. He was adorable. But
he's a dumb bitch.
But he's dumb. He's dumb. He's cute, but he's dumb.
So many of the good ones are.
Yes. Don't love him in that category.
So tired and exasperated.
So many of the cute.
Anyway,
and dumb.
So Knives out of 5.
Knives out of 5.
I'm gonna set the scene. These are not final numbers. Obviously, this movie didn't come out that long ago. But as of now, or at least as of Sunday, when I made these notes, the new Scream 5, has 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 77% fresh from critics and 83% fresh from audiences. How do we feel? Do we feel like that lines up with our thoughts on our Knives? What do you guys think?
I don't know what I want to give this movie. That's like,
yeah, I hear you. I think the thing is, like I said, it felt like a love letter to the franchise. And so for me, the first time I watched it, I was like, this should be the last one because it is so self-referential, and it is doing so much, and it is such a love letter to the franchise that it felt like the final note. It felt like the end of an era and the end of a story in the same way that Scream 3 did, where Scream 3 was very much like the closing of the trilogy, you know what I mean? And so for me, it hit a lot of those same emotional beats. And I was like, I'm not interested in getting any less Sidney, and I don't think they're going to give me any more Sidney than this movie did. And so at first I was really like, I like this movie best if it's the last one, and I would like it less if it's the start of a new trilogy. But then I saw it the second time and I still had so much fun that I was like, okay, I would watch more. Like whatever it is, I would watch more. I think it was really funny. I think they did a lot of really great jokes. I threw my arms up into the air when they said fan fucking fiction. A lot of it was, there were the Babadook jokes, great. You know what I mean? Like I thought it had a lot of interesting conversations. And I thought it was very funny. The first time I saw it, people were laughing a lot in the theater. It was not a very full theater, but people were really enjoying it. The second time, when Monica and I saw it together, everybody's being a hater.
They did not get it. They didn't get it. They thought we were being assholes for hysterically laughing at all the very funny jokes. And I was just like, baby, this is a comedy. Like, it's
like, have you guys seen the other Screams? Yeah. It's when, okay. Yes. When, first of all, why does Ghostface pretend like Detective Judy Hicks or Sheriff Judy Hicks or whatever lives in Bossing say the way he said Judy? I don't know why he says it like that. That's just a little Avatar The Last Airbender joke. Love that. When Ghostface is on the phone with her and he's like, what's your favorite scary movie, Judy? And she says, I prefer musicals and comedies, or whatever she says. Like, she says like musicals and animated films.
Animated films.
Which Avatar The Last Airbender. But I thought that was like so funny. And I thought there was a lot of really good jokes in this movie. I thought it was a blast. You know what I mean? So like I'm inclined to give it many, many knives. What said, would you give it? We have talked through some flaws and some holes, some plot holes. It didn't have Stu, for one. And that is not a reason to dock Knives, but they do have some timeline issues. And I'm mostly willing to overlook it, but it is a little questionable. The hallucination of Billy, I would be very interesting to see how that would play into future movies and what role that would have, because I think if it were missing, it would make it very strange that it exists here, unless they literally shift to a different character's perspective, because I think this movie was kind of from Sam's perspective. And so if the second one is from Tara's perspective, it would make sense, like, why we're not getting that information given to us visually on screen. But I think it would be kind of like strange if it was missing. And I also don't know how they would include it in a way that makes sense and adds something to the story. So it's like kind of a strange choice for me. That said, for fun alone, I'm like very willing to give it 5 knives out of 5s.
I'm right there with you. I had a fucking blast. I had so much fun. I have not screamed and laughed and cried. I cried hysterically when Dewey died, and I ordered another drink immediately. So that's coping for you. Go to Alamo Draft House. You can order drinks during the movie. It's amazing. But like, I don't know. I had a really, really good time. Obviously, it's not perfect. I had rage the first time that I watched it because I was so mad. But like, I think they did the fans justice, in my opinion. And I loved the new people, not all of them, but the ones I didn't care that much about pretty much died. So I don't have to worry about them ever again. And here I'm excited that there'll almost certainly be a Scream 6, because like I would love to feel this joy again. Sometime
And the
soon
movie's
in the
performing
next 2
so
to 3
well.
years.
There's
Oh,
no
yeah,
way
it's
they're not
doing-
going to capitalize.
Yeah. So I mean, I was gonna give it 4.7, but I'm gonna give it 5, because like, when's the last time I felt this joy? It's been a while.
I'm gonna do a 4.5.
Okay.
On this
Fair.
one.
I think that's
Like,
fair and allowed.
Very fair.
Because this is, I went back to look and I was like, I like Scream 4, and I liked this one maybe slightly more, but also like I know a lot of people shitted on Scream 4. But I think this and Scream 4 are very similar. Like, I like them both. They have like good takes. This one is funnier, which I do like, but like, something about it, it's not a 5 for me.
Okay.
It's not a
That's
5
fair.
for me.
Yeah.
But
Totally
it is
Yeah,
a
there
4.5.
are flaws. But I had a blast. And like I said, I would watch it again many times. And I would watch, they built up enough goodwill for sure that if another one came out, I would definitely see it opening weekend. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I
Definitely
don't know
go
what
see
it would
Scream
be.
6.
I don't know how it would make sense, but I'd be there.
100%. I'm excited to see what they come up with next. So that brings us to the end of our revisiting of our roots. And now we must trudge into the future valiantly. So, Sydney, what are we doing next week?
Okay, so we did a lot of 80s movies in December, and the lovely Chelsea Duff was like,
No more.
yeah, no more. But
80s moratorium for all of January. And we stuck to it.
but we could not pass up on one of the greatest movies ever made, which is the 1981 My Bloody Valentine.
Yes.
Because Valentine's Day is coming up, and what better way to celebrate it than murder?
Murder. Blood is red.
Not know what word you
Just
were
like the
saying for a
color of
second.
love. I liked it. Personally, I thought it was a
Hearts.
beautiful pronunciation.
Bloody, romantic.
Like, I don't want to watch a rom-com. I want to watch My Bloody Valentine.
Murder.
Murder. I mean,
Murder.
stop.
You have to stick your tongue out as you say it. I love it.
No, I don't like it.
Oh, I can't wait. We've all seen this one before, and
We watched it last
together.
Valentine's Day with our spooky
Yeah.
crew. It was such a blast.
Yeah, so this is
I'm
just going to be
thrilled.
such a fun one. It's a fucking classic slash. A classic slasher.
Slash.
A class slash. But yeah, I mean, we're about to have a whole week of Scream throwback content. So why not follow us on social media right now? It's like, seems like a good time. At spooky_Tuesday on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. We're also on Facebook and Tumblr at Spooky Tuesday Pod, and on Letterboxd at Spooky Tuesday. And why not give us a 5-star review to give us a pat on the back for, talking about Scream like it's so hard.
5
I don't
stars
know.
for Scream
Ugh.
5.
Exactly. Oh, wow. It's
Ooh.
thematic. 5 stars.
1
just
star
makes
for
sense.
every scream.
It's a clear
1,
reference.
2, 3,
Scream
4,
5 is a clear reference to how many stars you should rate us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser and Spotify.
Gorgeous.
So it's right there. And, thank you for listening, most of all.
Bye, spookies.
I'll be right back.
He's dead.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Haidt, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamra Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamra, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.